Hello and welcome to a special edition of the State of the Fleet Industry video series produced by Automotive Fleet Magazine. And this video series is designed to put a spotlight on key leaders in today's fleet management industry. And today I have the honor to interview John Dmochowsky, co-founder of JC Global Fleet Consulting, LLC, who also has the distinction of being the 2017 Fleet Manager of the Year and runner-up of the 2019 Global Fleet Manager of the Year awards. And John's been a longtime fleet manager for Kraft, and he was named the Global Fleet Manager for Mondelēz International when it was spun off from Kraft in 2012. So today our discussion is going to focus on what fleet managers need to do to excel at their companies. So with that, I'd like to welcome you to the discussion, John.
Thank you, Mike. It's so great to be with you this beautiful morning here in Chicago.
Yeah, likewise here in LA. So with that, let's start off our discussion. And I'd like to take advantage of your experience, the things that propelled you to win these various awards over the years. But what can fleet managers do to raise their exposure and stature with the senior management at their companies? This has always been a stumbling block. What advice would you give?
Yes, Mike, I agree with this area being a stumbling block. When I first came into the industry, and keep in mind, I came from a sales background. It was very easy for me to sell the fleet department, to go to my senior management and just share to them how big the fleet is and compared to the total operating spend. So I came with the core competencies of sales to get this message out to senior management. And it provided benefits.
Yeah.
The benefit it provided was something that's very important, and it's a governance team. And a governance team is key to the success of implementing a global fleet manager.
But I think you really hit the nail on the head, John. I mean, it's selling the fleet program. And some people might regard that in a pejorative way, but I think it's true. You need to sell the value of the fleet program because if you don't, somebody else is going to describe and identify what you do, which may not fully encompass all of your responsibilities and achievements
Yes.
that you've done. So that's a good point. Learning how to sell yourself to management. So uh, let me go into a second area that I like to discuss with you, and that's how fleet managers can work more collaboratively with the user groups who view them as an ally and help them meet their goals and objectives. How important a goal is that for a fleet manager?
Mike, I'm really glad you bring this up because it's a key element for global fleet managers or for any fleet manager to achieve their goals and objectives. You know, throughout my career in managing a multinational fleet, I realize how importance of working collaboratively with both the internal stakeholders as well as the external stakeholders. And the internal and external stakeholders need to be aligned on a solid strategic plan. And I was fortunate to have a team that consists of internal and external stakeholders who bought into our strategic plan, and they were committed to driving top tier results. And that is how I've noticed to be able to work with my peers and get them involved. And I also look at it as anytime there's an opportunity to get them involved with senior leaders. Now, they can't attend all the meetings that I attend with senior leader, but they can attend some of them. And it shows their
Mhm.
category expertise and it gives them the exposure that they need in order to be successful internally.
I agree. Um, I recently attended a meeting that was put on by an industry association. It had four drivers that were part of a panel discussion, and they were talking about how they use their company vehicles. And during the course of that discussion, it came out that none of those four drivers at four different companies even knew the name of their fleet manager. From your perspective, is that good or bad? And why is it important that your driver should know who you are?
It is very important that drivers know who you are just for one reason. Um, the reason is that they need to know who's putting these safety options into their vehicles. And when they see these specs that are being offered to them, I'm hoping they'll see a trend in the safety options that are available. And when specing a vehicle, one must look into the advanced safety technology and the active blind spots that's available and cross traffic alert. There's more than the three that I mentioned, but it's imperative so they know that, because in order for them to adapt and navigate with this fleet manager journey, the driver is a key component.
Hmm.
And that connection is imperative. And I've always, in my travels, made sure that I would designate some time to meet with a driver, to go to a drive along for 2 to 4 hours, just so they know that, look, I'm the individual who specs this vehicle. Your input is important, and we value our drivers and we want them to return home safely to their families.
Yeah, you can't overestimate the importance of driver engagement, and it's very important that fleet managers focus on that area. Too often we find ourselves just enmeshed in managing the asset versus, working with the driver. Because if you get driver compliance, you're going to get compliance with your fleet safety program, and it'll be a successful program. So let's take a look at your career. You're an award winning fleet manager. You must have learned a number of lessons along the way as to what works, what doesn't work. And I'm wondering if you could share with our viewers some of these lessons to help them advance their careers as our concluding discussion point.
Well, great. And what a way to end a conversation, and what a way to start a conversation is the focus on safety. Throughout my journey in managing a multi-fleet, I realized early on the importance of safety, which I will touch on briefly in a bit, as well as working collaboratively with everyone that touches the fleet. It is simple as that. Collaboratively working together, that everyone touches, that who touch a fleet, and being on a solid strategic plan and committed to delivering the results. And the way I have done this, as I mentioned earlier, getting them involved in front of meetings, but why not getting them involved in the industry? It's a tough one to pull off, but I was fortunate to have my entire global fleet team on stage, talking on a panel, giving insights about global fleet strategy and how it worked for them in their region. I was so proud of that. But at the end of the day, my advice to new fleet manager is make them a part of the team. Some of the things the members on the team were uncomfortable with speaking publicly, but they overcame their fears, and English was their second language. And it's amazing how people can be challenged. So challenge people on your team to a point that will get them to where they want to be, and it will help them in the exposure with their career. Last, I want to touch on is safety. Safety is the most important element in my role as a fleet professional. Having the right tools, not just the videos, but getting the governance team in line, make sure they're in safety, as well as getting all the stakeholders that touch it, health service, environment, HR, finance, as well as procurement. Safety will reduce your fleet spend. It will reduce it will reduce your collision. But most importantly, It will focus on your employees, who's the most important resource
Hmm.
a company could have.
Well, it's a terrific way to end our discussion. Unfortunately, we've reached our allotted time. There never seems to be enough time when we have our conversations together. So thank you for some great dialogue, great advice that you've given to the industry, and thank you for joining us today.
Thank you, Mike. It's always a pleasure.